Every stone in this video is red, and between the bottom of this list and the top, the price per carat climbs by roughly a factor of 1,000,000. Here's the part that should worry you. The cheapest stone on the whole list looks like the most expensive one, because that is exactly what it was manufactured to do. It sits in retail cases right now, wearing the name of a gem that costs thousands, and its wholesale price is a couple of dollars. So today I am ranking 15 red gems from cheap to rare with what each one actually costs per carat, so you do not overpay for the wrong red stone. And 3 of the biggest surprises are not at the top. They are hiding in the middle. Before we climb, 3 things decide the price of any red stone, and everything on this list obeys them. What mineral it actually is, because red is a color, and color is not a mineral. Whether it has been treated, because on some stones, 1 word on a report multiplies the price by 10. And where it came from, because origin is priced separately from beauty at the very top of this market. Let us start at the bottom. 15. Glass. The floor of the list, and it belongs here because it is genuinely everywhere. Red glass has been imitating gems for centuries, and in antique jewelry, it is not always a fraud, because Georgian and Victorian jewelers used it openly as paste, set it beautifully, and everyone knew. Modern red glass in a modern setting, sold as a gemstone, is a different thing entirely. Its value is effectively zero as a material. What you can pay for is age and craftsmanship, so a genuine Georgian paste piece has real collector value, and we covered that in the video about jewelry that looks cheap and is not, how to spot it. Under a loupe, glass shows round gas bubbles inside, and no stone that grew in the earth contains perfect spheres of air. Facet edges look soft and rounded because the piece was molded rather than cut, and it warms up in your hand far faster than a real stone. 14. The composite ruby, and this is the trap I promised. Now the most important entry in the entire video, because it sits at the bottom on value and near the top on price tag. Here's what it is. Low-grade corundum, so fractured it is nearly unsaleable, gets its fissures filled with molten lead glass. The glass has a refractive index close to ruby, so the cracks visually disappear and a cloudy broken lump becomes a clear glowing red stone. Wholesale, the material runs somewhere between a couple of dollars and $20 a carat. And GIA does not classify these as rubies at all. Stones held together by an artificial filler get described as manufactured products. Now the retail reality. These sit in department store cases at hundreds and thousands of dollars, described as genuine ruby, and they are physically fragile in a way ordinary life defeats. Lemon juice damages them. Household dish soap damages them. The pickling solution a jeweler uses while sizing a ring destroys them. Some crumble when taken out of a setting. 2 tells. The price, because a large vivid ruby at a friendly number is answering your question. And the words composite, hybrid, or lead glass filled anywhere on the tag, which under current rules must be accompanied by a special care statement. We took this apart fully in the chain store video, and it is the single worst purchase in this entire color. 13. Red jasper. From the fake to the honest, and jasper is completely honest about itself. Jasper is opaque chalcedony colored by iron, and it costs a few dollars per carat, often less. It is not trying to be a ruby, because it does not look remotely like one. It is solid brick red, no transparency, no sparkle, and it is cut as beads, cabochons, and carvings rather than faceted stones. For jewelry, that is genuinely useful. It is hard enough for daily wear, it takes a beautiful polish, and a large jasper cabochon costs less than a restaurant meal. If you want a big red stone on a budget and you do not need transparency, this is where the money stops being a problem. Just never pay gemstone prices for it, and be aware that dyed pale material exists, so a suspiciously uniform bright red bead may be colored. And there is one jasper worth knowing by name, because it does carry a premium. Picture jasper and the patterned varieties, where iron and other minerals have drawn landscapes and bands through the stone, are collected for the pattern rather than the color. Nobody is paying for red there. They are paying for the picture. 12. Carnelian. 1 step up and 1 step warmer. Carnelian is translucent chalcedony, red to orange red, colored by iron oxide, and it has one of the longest histories of any material in this video, used for seals and intaglios for thousands of years because it carves beautifully and does not stick to hot wax. Price sits in single digits to low tens per carat. It glows warmly when light passes through, which jasper cannot do. One thing to know before buying. A large amount of commercial carnelian is heat-treated agate, which is completely standard, permanent, and not a problem, but it means uniform color is common, and natural cloudy banding is a sign of untreated material. And a note for the antique hunters. Carnelian intaglios and old gold rings, actual carved seals from the 18th and 19th centuries, are collected for the carving rather than the stone, and there the value has nothing to do with the price per carat at all. 11. Almandine garnet. Now we reach the first properly transparent, faceted, gem-quality red stone on the list, and the price is still remarkably gentle. Almandine is the deep, dark red garnet, the one in nearly every Victorian piece you have ever seen. It runs from single digits to low tens of dollars per carat in commercial sizes, and it is genuinely durable at around 7 to 7.5. Here is the practical thing about almandine, and it decides whether you like it. It is dark. Deeply, richly dark, and in larger sizes it can read almost black in poor light. So it looks its best in a shallow cut that lets light through, in smaller stones, and set where light can get underneath it. And a historical note that puts the price in perspective. Bohemian garnet jewelry from the 19th century, those pieces smothered in dozens of tiny fiery garnets, is collected today for the workmanship, and the garnets themselves are worth very little of it, which is worth pausing on, because it inverts the whole logic of a price per carat ranking. A Bohemian garnet brooch might contain 40 stones with a combined material value of almost nothing, and sell for several $100s or considerably more, entirely because of who set them and when. On old jewelry, the latter in this video is only ever half the story. 10. Rhodolite garnet. Rhodolite is the pinkish-purplish red garnet, and the trade description of it is worth quoting almost exactly. It is the gentlest priced red gem of all. $20 to $100 a carat gets you a clean, bright, thoroughly attractive stone in a size you can actually see. It is lighter and livelier than almandine. It does not go dark in bigger sizes. It is durable, and it is essentially never treated, which produces one of the honest conclusions of this whole video. If what you want is a beautiful red stone in a ring for a reasonable amount of money, rhodolite is the correct answer, and nothing higher up this list will make it look better on your hand. Everything above here is buying rarity, not beauty. 9. Pyrope garnet, and the trap nobody warns you about. Pyrope is the pure red garnet, the one that burns rather than glows, and it is priced similarly to rhodolite, in the tens of dollars per carat. But it comes with a size rule that catches buyers constantly, and here it is. Pyrope burns intensely red when the stone is small, and goes dark when the stone is large. The color saturation that makes a 2-carat pyrope glorious makes a 7-carat pyrope look nearly black, because light has further to travel through the same intense color. So with pyrope, bigger is genuinely not better. This is one of the few gems where the smart buy is the smaller stone, and where a jeweler pushing you up in size is pushing you toward a worse looking piece. Chrome pyrope, colored by chromium, is the exception worth hunting, because it holds a vivid raspberry red at sizes where ordinary pyrope has already gone dark. And here's a buying tip that applies to the entire garnet family. Ask to see the stone in more than one light before you commit, because garnets shift character noticeably between daylight and warm indoor bulbs, and a stone that looks alive under a shop's carefully chosen spotlight can go flat and heavy in an ordinary room. Take it to the window. Every good jeweler expects that request. 8. Red zircon. Now, a stone with an image problem it does not deserve, because most people hear zircon and think cubic zirconia. They are completely unrelated. Cubic zirconia is a lab-made diamond simulant. Zircon is a natural mineral, one of the oldest on Earth, and the oldest known fragments of Earth's crust are zircon crystals. Red zircon runs from tens into low hundreds per carat depending on color purity, with vivid pure red at the top of that range. What makes it interesting is optical. Zircon has very high dispersion, which means it throws real colored fire, and it is doubly refractive, strongly enough that under a loupe you can often see the back facet edges doubled, which is a useful identification clue. Its weakness is brittleness. Zircon has poor toughness and chips at the edges, so it wants a protective setting, and it is happier in earrings and pendants than on a hand. 7. Mexican fire opal. The only opal on this list, and the only stone here whose value can come from something other than color. Fire opal is transparent to translucent opal in orange, and true red, and Mexico is the classic source. Plain fire opal without play of color runs from tens to a few hundred a carat. Fire opal that also shows play of color, those flashing patches of green and blue moving inside the red, jumps well beyond that, because you are then buying 2 effects in one stone. 2 warnings, because opal is opal. It sits around 5.5 to 6.5 in hardness, which is soft, and it contains water, which means heat and dryness can craze it, that fine network of surface cracks we covered in the video about buying online. So fire opal is a beautiful pendant, a beautiful earring, and a risky ring, and never put one anywhere near an ultrasonic cleaner or a steamer for the same reason. On opal, the cleaning is more dangerous than the wearing. 6. Rubellite tourmaline. Now, the stone that solves a problem nothing else on this list can solve, and this is where the middle of the ranking gets genuinely interesting. Rubellite is the red to raspberry variety of tourmaline, and it runs from around $100 to several $100s a carat, with top material higher. That is real money compared to garnet, and a fraction of what is coming next. Here is its unique argument. Rubellite arrives in statement sizes that ruby simply does not offer at any sane price. A 10 or 15 carat clean ruby is auction territory. A 10 or 15 carat rubellite is a nice ring. If what you want is a large, vivid, transparent red stone that dominates a hand, Rubellite is the only realistic route to it. 2 honest notes. Rubellite leans pink and often shows dark internal reflections, so it does not read as pure blood red. And it is commonly included, so much so that visible inclusions are accepted in the trade rather than treated as defects. Clean Rubellite in a big size costs disproportionately more precisely because it is rare. One more thing to ask about, because it is common and it is priced. A good deal of Rubellite on the market has been clarity enhanced, filled with resin the same way emerald is, to disguise those fractures. It should be disclosed, it affects the price substantially, and it is exactly the kind of treatment that a jeweler's torch can undo during a future repair. If any of this is changing what you thought red stones cost, subscribe, because the top 5 are where the prices stop being reasonable and start being historical. 5. Red spinel. And here is the great injustice of the colored stone world. Red spinel forms in the same ground as ruby, looks close enough to ruby that it fooled royal courts for centuries, sits at 8 on the hardness scale, has no cleavage, and is almost never treated, while nearly every ruby on the market has been heated. In a true saturated red, it is actually rarer than ruby, and it trades at a fraction of ruby's price, roughly the low thousands per carat for fine material, where comparable ruby is deep into 5 figures. Why? Because of a naming accident that lasted 500 years. Until science separated the two minerals, every fine red stone was called a ruby, so spinel spent centuries as a lesser word for the same object. The Black Prince's ruby in the British Imperial State Crown is a spinel. The Timur ruby is a spinel. The market has been discounting spinel ever since for a clerical error. Nature made it the equal. The name made it the bargain. And it is, in my opinion, the single best value in fine red gems that exists today. 4. Jedi spinel. Spinel gets its own second entry, because one variety broke away from the rest of the family entirely. Jedi spinel is a neon, glowing, almost fluorescent red to pinkish red spinel, found principally in Myanmar, and it earned its nickname because the color has no dark side to it. It does not go gray, it does not go brown, it just burns. It trades at multiples of ordinary red spinel, into the thousands and higher per carat, because supply is genuinely small, and the material has become a collector obsession over the last decade, rather than a trade staple. This is the entry that tells you how gem markets actually work. Same mineral as number 5, same hardness, same lack of treatment. What changed the price is a specific color, a specific source, and a name that collectors decided to chase. Rarity plus a story equals a market. 3. Commercial ruby. Now we reach ruby itself, and the first thing to understand is that ruby is not one price. It is a range so wide that the word alone tells you almost nothing. Commercial ruby, meaning heated stones of ordinary color and clarity from sources like Mozambique and Thailand, occupies a huge span from hundreds to low thousands per carat depending on size and quality. That is genuine ruby, genuinely corundum, genuinely 9 on the hardness scale, and for most buyers, it is what the word ruby is actually going to mean. The critical detail is heat. The overwhelming majority of rubies on the market have been heat treated to improve color and clarity, and that treatment is permanent, stable, universally accepted, and correctly disclosed. It is not a scandal. It is the norm, but it is priced, which brings us to the single biggest jump in this entire ranking. 2. Unheated ruby, the same mineral as number 3. Frequently indistinguishable to the naked eye, and 10 to 20 times the price. One word on a laboratory report, no indications of heating, does that. Because untreated fine rubies are genuinely scarce, and at the top of the market, people are buying the stone exactly as the earth produced it. This is where certification stops being paperwork and becomes most of the value. A stone sold as unheated without a report from a respected laboratory is a claim, not a fact, and at these numbers, the report costs a rounding error compared to the premium it is verifying, and the top of this category has a name. Unheated Burmese pigeon's blood ruby from the Mogok Valley, that specific deep red with a slight purple undertone, is the most expensive colored gemstone material in the world by weight after red diamond. Fine stones above 2 carats regularly sell in the tens of thousands of dollars per carat at major auctions, and exceptional pieces have gone far beyond that. 3 words are doing all of that work. Unheated. Burmese. Pigeon's blood. 1. The red diamond. And at the summit, a stone most people will never see in person. Red diamonds are the rarest color of diamond, and unlike almost every other colored diamond, the color does not come from an impurity. There is no element making it red. It comes from a distortion in the crystal structure itself, which is why so few exist. The number that defines the category is the Musaeff red, 5.11 carats, valued around $20 million. Run that arithmetic and you land near $4 million per carat. Compare that to where we started. The composite ruby at number 14 costs a few dollars a carat and looks, to an untrained eye across a shop counter, like a magnificent red gem. The stone at the top of this list costs roughly 1 million times more per carat. Same color. Same first impression from 3 feet away. And that gap is the entire reason this video exists. Now, how not to overpay. 4 questions, and they cover everything on this list. What mineral is it, precisely? Not what color it is. Red is not an identification, and a tag that says red gemstone is telling you nothing at all. Has it been treated, and how? For ruby, assume heated unless a laboratory says otherwise. For anything described as composite, hybrid, or filled, walk. And remember the distinction that matters most. Accepted permanent treatment like heat is completely different from filler holding a stone together. Where is it from, and is that claimed or proven? Origin carries an enormous premium at the top of ruby, and it is exactly the kind of claim that needs a laboratory rather than a salesperson. And what is it worth per carat compared to its neighbors? Because the whole point of a ranking like this is that the stone one step down the ladder often looks 90% as good for 10% of the money. Now the honest note, and it matters more on this list than on most, expensive does not mean more beautiful. A Rubellite garnet at $50 a carat, well cut and well set, is a genuinely gorgeous red stone, and nobody looking at your hand is running a refractometer over it. What the top of this list buys is rarity, durability, and in ruby's case, a resale market that actually exists. So decide which of those you are paying for before you pay. If you want beauty, the middle of this ladder is extraordinary value. If you want an asset, the top is where assets live. And if somebody is selling you the top while charging you for the middle, or the other way around, now you can tell. And when the money gets serious, the answer is the same one this channel gives every week. Buy from a good independent jeweler. And for anything above a token amount, insist on a report from a respected gemological laboratory that matches the stone in front of you. 10 seconds with a loop starts the conversation. Paper finishes it. Now tell me in the comments which red stone you own and which rung of this ladder you think it is on. The inherited ring nobody ever identified. The bargain ruby that felt too cheap. The garnet somebody called a ruby for 40 years. I read every one, and the best finds on this channel always come out of the comments. This channel takes no sponsorships and no paid placements. No brand, no dealer, and no laboratory pays to be praised or buried here. And that independence is the only reason I can tell you that a stone rarer than ruby sells for 1/10 of ruby's price because of a 500-year-old mistake nobody bothered to correct. If straight answers like this are why you keep coming back, the join button below makes you a member and keeps these breakdowns honest. Red is a color. It is never an identification. I will see you in the next one.